Hello everybody and welcome to Tiger Tales, where you'll find fan fiction written and read to you guys by your host, me, Tai Tiger. Now all fan fiction on this channel is completely fresh and new fiction to you guys. It doesn't breach the copyright and it's not connected to any original creators. So let's dive into today's chapter, which is Power Rangers Future Foundation. And in the last chapter, end of chapter 3, our black Mighty Morphin Ranger Dante and yellow Dino Thunder Ranger Chloe got into some trouble fighting a lizard monster. After he left some foot soldiers and they found themselves at wit's end. But just before they got defeated, there turns up a blue Time Force Ranger. So let's dive into chapter 4. Time for a new ranger. A black, slim car sped past as it flew down the road. 2 police cars followed. The black car took a harsh turning. The 2 police cars took the turning with some difficulty. As the car entered an alleyway, it scraped the wall. Sparks erupted as the metal of the car scraped the brick. As the car flew out of the alleyway, it swerved across the road and crashed into the opposing wall. The 2 police officers came out of to a sudden halt, and several officers spewed out of the vehicles and surrounded the car. "Get out of the car, hands where I can see them," one officer called out. A man climbed out of the car. The men grabbed the man and pinned him to the car and cuffed him. "Luca Kendall, you are under arrest for grand theft auto," the arresting officer said with a stern voice. Luca said nothing as the officer read him his rights. Several hours passed and Luca was sat staring at the same spot on the wall he'd been staring at for at least an hour. "Your father was a great man, Luca, a Power Ranger, a fantastic driver, and you'll hear nothing of the two." The officer sat at the desk said to him, "Yes, I know, my dad was so perfect, and my mum changed after my granddad tried to end the world when he got stuck in the 21st century, Luca said sarcastically. "Yeah, but they both helped the Wild Force and Time Force Rangers. They changed for the better, so why are you stealing cars, the officer asked. "Maybe I'm adopted," Luca joked. Luca turned around and away from the officer. He thought about what the officer said. He didn't know why he stole that car. His parents were always good to him. His granddad even educated him on his father and his feud back in the day. Luca cringed at the thought of himself being part mutant. He never thought of himself as a mutant. Mutants were always the villain, with few expectations, and Luca always thought he would end up being the villain, but instead, he was just in a jail cell for stealing a car. Nothing fantastic. Suddenly, everything went black. Luca looked around and all he could see was darkness. "What the hell?" Luca muttered. Luca stood there, took a few steps, when suddenly a flash sparked and there stood a knight, all damaged. "Luca Kendall, the son of Lucas Kendall, the blue Time Force Ranger," the knight said. "Why does everyone keep mentioning that?" Luca growled. "Hush now, Luca. Let me talk. I have little time," the knight said. Luca frowned at the knight. "I am the morphing master, and we have need of you, Luca," the master told him. "Why do you need me for?" Luca muttered. "There's a team being built of rangers with all powers to fight a new foe, and right now 2 of them are in danger," the master told him. "You want me to help a bunch of rangers?" Luca questioned. "We want you to take your father's powers," the master said. Luca stood there stunned. How could I be a ranger, he thought to himself. "Your self-doubt will have to wait. You have time travelling to do," the master said. Luca raised an eyebrow. "Your new team is in the year 2022, the master said. "How am I going to time travel?" Luca said. "Find your morpher, and time travelling will be easy," the master told him. "Now take your father's powers and help your new team," the master demanded. But Luca started, but the sudden change of scenery cut him off. Luca was now back in his cell. Once again, the sound of high-pitched ringing alarm filled the room. The officer who was sat at the table was no longer there. Suddenly the wall next to him started rumbling. Then it exploded, knocking Luca back as pieces of brick flew across the room. Luca stood there to see 2 guys stood on the outside. One really skinny and one really large man. "Hello, carboy. You did well then," the scrawny one said. Chucky took you 2 boys long enough," Luca grinned. The two men walked into the cell. The larger man, known as Chucky, blasted the cell door open with his hand blaster, allowing the three men to leave the cell. "You got the blueprints, then?" the scrawny man, known as Screw, asked. "Yep. I placed a device on the counter when they dragged me in here. Should have scanned the whole building by now," Luca told them. Screw pulled out his phone and opened it. Suddenly a holographic image of the blueprints of the building appeared. "Ah ha 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 ha, yes, good lad, that's my boy," Screw called out. "Good boy," Chucky laughed. Luca nodded. The three men followed the blueprints to the armory. Chucky used his gun to bust open the first lock, but the second lock was fingerprint scanner. "You're up, boy," Chucky snorted. Luca placed his finger on the scanner. It lit up and unlocked. "It worked," Chucky grinned. The three men entered the armory and started raiding the boxes. Chucky and Screw started filling a duffel bag with all types of weapons and gadgets. Luca looked around, then opened a box, when a small wrist-mounted device fell into his hands. Whoa. Luca was shocked at the Time Force morpher in his hands. For a moment, Luca thought he was daydreaming. But then the Master in Darkness came back to his mind, and the morpher was in his hand. Luca thought about it. Luca then thought about his dad. He was a great ranger. Then he looked around the room. Luca was nothing but a thug. Luca was nothing but a thief. "I have to do better than this," Luca whispered. Then in a flash of light, Luca was in a field. He looked around confused. "I used a lot of my remaining power to send you to the 21st century. If you used a machine, it would cause unwanted attention, and you are needed with the Rangers," a voice rang in his head. "What on earth is going on?" Luca muttered. Luca sat on the grass, taking the scenery of the 21st century racing by, life unfolding before him. As he watched the city, the Time Force morpher wasn't still in his palm. He strapped it to his wrist. His mind kept going back to his parents. DNA locked. DNA required. DNA scanned. DNA unlocked. The morpher spoke. Luca was lost in his dream when something exploded. Luca watched as another explosion erupted. He looked down upon the city and saw the disaster unfold, everyone running in panic when he clocked the source of the explosion. A lizard-like monster, spitting lightning attacks from his mouth. "Whoa," Luca said. "I don't know." "Fine." Luca headed towards the commotion, as he whispered to himself. As he got closer, he ducked behind a few cars and watched the lizard confront two people. A young man with dark brown hair tied up in a ponytail, and a girl with blonde hair. They were speaking, but Luca couldn't hear what they were saying. Suddenly the boy held out some kind of belt-buckle type looking device, and yelled something. Then the girl held up two fingers to her wrist and screamed something as well. Within a flash, the two turned into Power Rangers. "Looks like the Master was right. These must be the two Rangers I must help," Luca muttered. He sat there and watched as the two Rangers struggled to beat the lizard monster. Then the lizard monster summoned a team of foot soldiers. The lizard turned and disappeared in a flash of purple, leaving the wounded Rangers to fight the small army. Luca looked at his wrist. The chronomorpher was still there. "I'm not just a mutant. I'm not just a thug. I can do something here. I'm not just my dad's kid. I can be something by myself," he whispered. Luca then stood and quickly crossed his arms and pressed the morpher. Time Force," Luca called out. Luca stood there, full of new power. He stood there as the Time Force Blue Ranger. He summoned his chrono sabers and walked to the crowd of foot soldiers. He cleared his throat to announce himself. Now back in the jail cell in the year 3039, Screw and Chucky sat there in their shared cell, both disheartened about their defeat and the lack of loot, also confused on where Luca went, when suddenly a portal opened and a Power Ranger stepped out. "What in the blazes?" Screw called out. "You two boys want to get out of here?" the Ranger asked. "And why would we follow you?" Chucky asked in return. "'Cause I can give you the power to destroy the man responsible for you two being here, and leaving you empty-handed," the Ranger growled. Both Screw and Chucky grinned and fell into laughter. And that was Chapter 4. I want to thank you guys for listening to chapter 4. I hope you guys are enjoying this. I'm really enjoying writing it. Now go check out Zio to Hero, a podcast on Spotify and Apple, everywhere else that you can listen to podcasts. Jim and Billy are the Balkan Scholar podcast, and they talk to fans about their local shared fandoms, and they're a lot of fun. Go check out Cosplay Dude 637. He does very similar things to this with his own stories, and his stories are absolutely fantastic, and he's got big things in the work. Go check out Rachel Show Unleashed. She also has a podcast, and she's also a lot of fun. Go check out Baker Rangers, another podcast, and everyone I just mentioned is part of the Zero to Hero community, and they're just an awesome bunch. They're also very supportive, and they're also very supportive of me, and yeah, I thought I'd just shout them out a little bit. Go check out Mark, the Red Corner Ranger on TikTok. He's got a few things brewing in as well, which I'm actually a part of. So yeah, go check everyone out. It would mean a lot, and thank you very much for listening, and I shall see you guys in the next chapter.